Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. This is our final chat session for the year. Of course, In Pit Lane on Channel 31 has now finished up for the 2022 season. Found out today what's replacing us. Actually, if you're into sim racing at all, there's a dedicated sim racing program. Richard might be interested in this. Coming up at 9:30, there's Sim Racing World is replacing us on Channel 31 over the summer. So they're having a look at their stuff. It looks like they've got a big budget and lots of big money sponsors. So have a look at what that's like tonight if you're into sim racing and all the rest of it. As I've said before, I've tried to get into sim racing. I'm sorry if it offends people who are into sim racing when I say it is not real motorsport. I'm sorry. I just can't get into it. Whatever. It's a game. But anyway, that's what it is. Let's talk about some real motorsport, what there is of it anyway. Not a lot around, but joining us once again, Peter Johnson is with us again, Richard Outram, and of course, Craig Doc Gladigo for the last program of the year. And I'll bring up some news. There has been some stuff happening, including Adelaide on the weekend. I didn't watch a whole lot of it. I must admit, I was spent most of the weekend sort of coughing and spluttering and throwing up and going to sleep and all the rest of it, because having avoided the dreaded lurgy for the past 2 years, I finally managed to pick it up on the last show of the year in Channel 31, or the Christmas party, one or the other. But Pete, I imagine you looked. One thing I did notice, so that I did watch, was the S5000s, and they looked good. Yeah, I thought they looked really good. And
I think, I think that's a track that suits them, and it's a proven open wheeler track, because we had the Formula Ones there, of course, and it appeared that we found the challenge for Shane van Gisbergen. That's Adelaide, because he didn't really have, compared to his other times, he didn't really have a great weekend that weekend, and also turn 11 appeared to be the new turn 8. A lot of people were having trouble with turn 11 this year.
It was certainly a successful comeback. I mean, when you consider that how quickly it was all put together, I mean, it was only from sort of midway through the year that they definitely, after the election, that they definitely decided that it was coming back. They'd signed the memorandum of understanding. I think a lot of people probably would have said, in hindsight, that we could have left it a year, we could have left it, but the new premier did make the promise that it not only would come back, but it would come back this year, and they pulled it off, and it looked like, from the size of the crowd and from the feedback from everybody, it seemed like they pulled it off well. It seemed to have that. Everybody who went along said that it had that Adelaide vibe, and there is something about that track and that event, whether it's the Grand Prix, whether it was the American Le Mans Series for that one-off race, or for the Adelaide 500. There is a very special vibe and a very special feeling about that event.
Yeah. And it was good to see a Brock, even though another Brock. It was good to see a Brock see off Holden.
Wasn't it? Yep.
Yeah, well, actually, James Brock pointed that out too. Said it was good to see the last race won by Holden was once again won by a Brock. So that was good. So that was good stuff, and he drove a very good race and sort of broke through. So, but that's of course the end of Holden, and now we wait to see what happens next year with the Gen 3 cars. If hopefully they'll have enough to put a full grid together.
Well, the controversy does extend as well, though, too, because it's not the end of Holden, because everyone's saying, well, all those cars have now dropped to Super 2 anyway, so everyone can keep following them there. And the previous FGXs and the Mustangs dropped to Super 3 now. So they just keep eventually following down. But the biggest social media storm on the weekend was whether Erebus were going to run Holden badges or E badges. But anyway,
they put the Holden badges back.
Popcorn stuff.
Well, they took the Holden badges off famously, of course, years ago because they said, "Well, we're getting no support from Holden. They're doing nothing for us. So why should we run their logo on our car?" So, but they put it on. I'm glad they put it on for the last round.
No, they didn't put it for the start of the round. They only after public pressure. There was a whole lot of public. Not backlash, but everyone's saying, "Why ain't you putting them on for?" And everyone said, "Well, if you're going to put a Holden badge on it, you should be putting an Opal badge on it because it was an Opal as well too." So,
and we're getting some of our regular viewers in. So box, and
yes, go box.
Yeah.
And Roy, virtual A.
Yep, used to sim race the Australasian League before it became popular. Yeah, well, it's become ridiculous. Not only has it become popular, it's become quite lucrative for a lot of people. And having a look today, I mean, I couldn't see it, but I went to their channel, and when they were talking about it, and they said, we're thrilled to be on Channel 31 Melbourne, and we'll be sponsored. And they had this massive list of sponsors. And I'm assuming they've bought the time from Channel 31 because apart from the show itself, which is running for 1 hour. They're doing the hour at 9:30 tonight. They're also running some of their races on a Wednesday night as well. And that's a 2-hour block, which they would have paid for. And that does not come cheap. That does not come cheap at all.
No, and that's what Supercars did with their sim races. They had a 2-hour block on a Wednesday night.
Yeah. Yeah, so at least this is going to be, I think this is going to be a variety. If you have a look at their their website, it's there's a lot more. It's not just supercars. There's lots of there's open wheelers, there's Formula 3, there's sports cars, there's historic cars. There's a whole bunch of different things. So there'll be a bit of variety.
Before we jump off it too, what you did mention the S5000. Congratulations to Nathan Hearn on winning the title as well though too, and his Trans Am stuff and all that sort of stuff for a year. So is it the Tasman title? I think it's still cool, even though they're not running in New Zealand.
Yeah, well, I don't know. One of the announcements on the bottom is that next year's series they're going to stretch out the Gold Star to cover the whole year, but they're still going to have the last 2 rounds, which will be the last round will be at Adelaide, and it looks like the other round will be on the streets of Surfers, although it hasn't been announced for sure yet. Yeah. But that's going to be for the Tasman series. But yeah, I'm still of the opinion that until they have at least one, preferably 2, if they had 2 races in Australia and 2 races in New Zealand, by all means then call it a Tasman series. But until they can get those races in New Zealand, which I think I still think they're going to have a lot of trouble getting that.
Because Supercars did.
They've run out of time. They're going to try to, but. Unfortunately, it is, Alpine Rally winner Nathan Quinn. I saw that as well, though, too. In his RX2. I saw that this afternoon. Well done.
Yeah, one of the longest running races, rallies in Australia. In fact, one of the worlds in the world. So long history of the Alpine Rally. We've done stories on that in the past.
I do see Flash's post. That's Gordon Grant, of course, who was just on the bottom third there for a second ago that Pete had up. Yeah, Flash joined us earlier in the year in the first season, and he does a lot of engineering out on the west side of Melbourne. And Flash, thanks for the updates for the last couple of weeks on all your posts too, Flash. I've been keeping up with them and checking out the links on the Alpine Rally, and they're doing a lot of work out there always on the circuit and on the roads and making sure they're always safe going out in their spare time during the week as well too. So thanks to the officials for doing that.
It's such a hard thing running any rally now. I mean, especially with all the weather. I mean, it's either they either can't run because it's too dry and too hot, and the fire restrictions make it too dangerous if a car goes off and if they catch fire, or it's like at the moment where everything's still underwater and absolutely sodden. Did you see up at Mildura? They've cancelled the speedway up there, and it looks
still flooding.
It looks like it looks like an island, a little sort of like an island of speedway, and then just a whole sea of water around it.
We'll have a look what's going over in South. They've only this week. I was looking at some of the Echuca stuff. The paddle steamers. A paddle steamer about a week ago did a navigation check course. to make sure it was safe to be able to, for all watercraft, paddle steamer wise, to be able to navigate around the Murray there. So I think as of this week, the paddle steamers are allowed back on it for the tourist season. However, recreational boating, so whether it be your personal watercraft, whether it be a tinny, whether it be water skiing, any sort of recreational use of your own, you still cannot land the water, float the water. You cannot dock anything at all on the Murray. So just keep that in mind. So that might put a dent in the tourist season, unfortunately, but the paddle steamers are up and running for the tourists of that part. So good stuff.
Yeah, so anybody else? Richard, did you have a look at all at Adelaide?
I watched all of it, actually, and I was very impressed. It was great racing. Yeah, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. It was top racing through every category. There was drama at all stages, plenty of overtaking, plenty of everything you could look for. It held me. I didn't fall asleep once.
What about the strikes?
The strikes?
Well, as I'm saying, cars were obviously.
Plenty found. Yeah,
which I thought. I find that a good thing. Everyone bags it and says, "Oh, they should be able to freely race and run around the track on all the bloody. If they hit the wall." But it keeps them in line, and if they know they've got 2 or 3 strikes down, the next one they're going to cop a 5, 10, 15-second penalty. It keeps them on the straight and narrow.
Well, we're talking about Shane when he tried to overtake before the apex.
Oh, yes. I forgot that's fair enough.
They got it right, in my view. They were bang on. Shane pushes it to the very limit on every rule. He's very good, but this time he got caught.
And that's what Max Verstappen does it too. And he's been caught and told, so they're not allowed to. What he used to do was be right alongside them, virtually what Shane did. Under safety car on the restart, he wouldn't overtake them, but be right alongside them. And they've said you're not allowed to do that, and nobody's allowed to do that anymore. And it was as a result of him doing it, Max Verstappen doing it. So just Max Verstappen is similar.
Just before we go any further, Richard, what you're explaining is there was a safety car, there were yellow flags. It was the last corner before they get the green flag again for the people that are listening and watching. So everyone knows what we're talking about who didn't see the event. And cars are not allowed to go up past half the car or the B pillar. It's about half the car on the apex of the last corner. So that's right almost diagonally on the 45-degree angle of it. So what happens with Shane Van Gisbergen doesn't matter where he was in the pack, he was down the field by 8th, 10th, whatever it may be. He pushed his nose up past halfway up the car in front of him. I can't remember who it was at the time. Might have been Davey Reynolds, I think. And it was as he did it as he was going past the apex. Therefore, you've incurred a penalty. And continue on with your report card, Richard.
I was just going to say, I thought they weren't allowed to overlap, which means the nose of your car is not meant to be past the rear of the car in front.
No.
Now, Peter might disagree with me. It might be the B pillar, is it?
I think you're right. I always thought they weren't meant to overlap, and that's the first time I've actually seen him.
A bit further up. He was right up there. That's all.
That's the first time I've seen him.
That's the first time I've seen him do something like that. I don't know. I've never seen him do anything like that before. I know he's good at exploiting rules, but that's the first time I've seen him do that.
What about he only went for one hot lap and stuffed that as well, though, too, in qualifying earlier on in the weekend, too.
Got caught out by the red flag.
Yeah. Like I say, I think we found the challenge for Shane. Adelaide.
Yeah. Well, a lot of drivers haven't played that game for a few years, remember?
But he still managed to get into the top 10, didn't he? I've forgotten exactly where he
is. In the second race he did. In the first race, he finished in the top 10, I think. But then he went off. He went off. He made an error and he went off. Yeah. Then he slipped down the order.
It'll be interesting to see what he does from here on in, because he said publicly now that he's going to basically have a look at like how much he enjoys driving the new cars. I mean, for Shane, it's very much about the challenge and what he gets out of it. I think he'll, from what I've heard about the new cars, from people, from talking to Tom Randall a while ago about them, I think it's going to be the sort of car that Shane is actually going to enjoy, because it's going to have less downforce and pretty much the same sort of power, a little bit less power, but not a lot. But they'll be very fast in a straight line. They've got no traction control. I mean, the current ones don't have traction control, so they'll have no traction control, but they'll have a lot less. I think it's about it might even be as much as 60. I think it's at least 40% less downforce. So they'll be fast. So they'll be fast in a straight line. They'll be blisteringly fast in a straight line.
The gear shifting will be slightly harder. Not much harder, but slightly.
It'll be the same, because they're still going to have the sequential gearbox. Because the only thing is that they're not going to have because they were going to introduce the paddle shift, and there was a bit of a thing about that. So they're still going to have the sequential gearbox. But it'll be interesting to see.
Is it going to be? Is it going to be properly engaged? It's not going to be just for show only. It's actually going to be a proper gear.
I'm with you, Pete. There, I'm with you on that one.
Because there was some talk that it was going to be just for show only.
Yeah, for show only. No, I believe it's going to be basically the same gear as they're running now. There's not huge.
They'll have different diff ratios. Obviously, a taller diff when they do the bigger courses like Bathurst, and a shorter diff.
The interesting thing is going to be like how they get this balance of performance right, because they're going to get down. Yeah, so I mean they're going to play around with that, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of controversy, which of course is great for the media, because you've got to have something to talk about. So the arguments will start, and the Chev fans will say, the Ford's cheating, and the Ford fans will say,
well, at the moment, the Camaros are the ones that are actually faster, and Ford are concerned about the VCAT sign off, because it has been signed off as being a successful testing, but it hasn't been. But they're not on parity at the moment. They're way off it. So they've only got the testing in Australia Day weekend. Technically, still Australia Day weekend. It depends on what local government agency or local council agency you're involved in at the moment, because they're not. That's been all over the news tonight. However, it's Australia Day weekend, January 26th, and a week later for the Queensland one. That's the first ones they get, and then they get another one a week or two later, and it's the first one's only 6 weeks away from the first round. So they're still scared. And that was supposed to have happened earlier this year. The Gen 3 is supposed to be already running around for a year.
I believe that it is a proper clutch. I believe that was one of the arguments that drivers, particularly people like Van Gisbergen, made. He was saying, no, he said, I love driving the GT cars. They're fantastic, but they're GT cars, and that's what they should do. These are not GT cars. They should be totally different from GT cars, and they should be as much like in many respects, as a touring car as they can be. So, it's mainly sort of the aerodynamics and the body style and the engine's going to be the big change, but suspension and brakes and the drivetrain and all the rest of it, as far as I know, is pretty much almost identical to what they're running now.
Just while it's on the ticker, without the officials, the motorsport events can't run. Yeah. So I'd just like to congratulate Christopher McMahon on being the Senior Official of the Year, the Motorsport Australia's Senior Official of the Year.
Yes, he won that at the FIA awards in Paris. Our mate Roger Churnside, he's won a gong. There's lots of. They do tend to give them out to each different thing, but this is apparently the big gong, because Senior Motorsport Official of the Year is a pretty impressive title. So congratulations for winning. And once again, we know that whatever area it is, that Motorsport Australia or CAM's sort of volunteer officials are held in very, very high esteem. I mean, if you talk to Christian and Roger, who have both done a lot of overseas marshalling at Le Mans and Nürburgring and places like that. they'll tell you that Australian marshals are welcome pretty much everywhere in the world, and that's one of the things you do if you're prepared to put in that sort of time, and you put in to volunteer, and you do this for long enough, then it does open up the opportunities that people like Christian have had to sort of contact people over at Le Mans or the British Grand Prix or a whole bunch of major international events and say, hey, I'm heading over to Europe, and I wouldn't mind helping out for a weekend here and there at a DTM round or a VLN round or something like that.
Oh, flag out the window.
You can do that.
Yeah,
you're made very welcome.
Can I bring up a little point I noticed about the Gen 3 cars when they were going around? What I noticed, I visualized them with the decals on them, and then I thought, okay, they're going to sound like them, they're going to look like them. Trans Ams. They're going to look like Trans Ams. They're going to sound like Trans Ams. All they're going to be is a little bit slower than Trans Ams.
No, they'll be faster than the Trans Am. At least the Trans Am.
Yeah, I mean the Trans Am will be slower than them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of cross pollination on the looks in front of the camera.
This is the problem. I mean, because now you'll have supercars, Trans Am or TA2 as runs in Australia, and GT4 as well, because of course we now have a GT4 Camaro and a GT4 Mustang. Now they're going to push GT4 as a separate series. They're going to run with the Australian Production Car Championship, because I'm really surprised that GT4 hasn't taken off before. So you'll get all of your Porsche Caymans and your BMWs and all the rest of it. But if you have a look at that, that racing is great, and you have a look at the GT4 Mustang and the GT4 Camaro, and then have a look at the supercar versions. Yeah, they're a difference, but you'd have to be you've got to be a pretty keen follower, I think, to to pick what the differences are. I mean, the wing package looks very similar, and the wheels look very similar, and the bodies are of course similar. But although they're two radically different cars,
it's all because there's a limited number of cars being made these days in Australia, full stop, if not none, and that would suit any category. And they're importing, the most good-looking cars from overseas that have factory backing and they're going to try and put them in a class where they're all similar to each other, that they can race against each other, where one's not going to be more dominant than the other. So when you've got no Falcons or Commodores being made here anymore, or you haven't got any Magnas, or you haven't got any, certain cars around, they've got to import them, and they're going to import the best looking ones, aren't they? So the field narrows. Unfortunately,
I was surprised after Adelaide how many short wheelbase GT3 cars there were around, like an AMG and a.
You know what? If they've made enough of them, and if they keep coming out to Australia, you know what you'll actually probably see, even, and this might take over your series. You won't have the Hyundai XL series. It'll be the Kia Stingers down the track. You watch, there'll be a Kia Stingers bloody damn well, because those things absolutely fly. Those twin turbos, they absolutely move like a hurricane. The handling's pretty good on them too, especially when they're going around witches' hats with guys drawing lines on roads. If anyone's seen that ad, it was a ripping ad. That was like an iconic ad on a few years ago.
No, I was just mentioning how many GT cars ended up in the wall in Adelaide. Big checkbooks coming out. We can hear the slap of those checkbooks now.
Yeah, well, that's always the problem.
Some of them
some of them ran out of talent. I mean, that's the main thing. That's the problem. I mean, sort of, I think it was Shane Van Gisbergen himself who said it that. Sorry, I still got the ends of this damn thing. I think it was Shane himself that said this. Who said that, people said, why don't they just run GT3? He said, if you have a look at what happens at Adelaide and what's happened in the past on the streets of Surface and at Townsville and all the rest of it, is GT3 cars do not like street circuits. They're not made for street. They're made for big, sweeping European-style circuits and tracks like Nürburgring and Le Mans and Paul Ricard and Spa and all the rest of those. They're not made to throw over curbs and that sort of thing. Whereas these cars are made. This is one of the reasons they said they claimed they had to do it this way. Is they wanted to make cars that were going to race on the sort of race well on the sort of circuits we have in Australia, and not necessarily have to have a compromise because of the way they're set up overseas.
Is it going to stick in some teams' craw that the cost cap is increased for the sprint races, and is Red Bull going to benefit from that as well, or not?
You'd have to think so. I mean, it's pretty weak by the FIA. I mean, we've got to have a cost cap. A cost cap is really important. We demand a cost cap, and then they have these damn sprint races, and they go, "Oh, we're going to we're going to double the cost cap for the sprint rounds." So it is it's obviously it'll benefit all of the bigger teams. It'll benefit, it's the way the system works. I mean, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The Ferrari and Red Bull and Mercedes
Is it going to negate Red Bull's penalty in terms of wind tunnel testing time, or do you think, or not?
I don't think so, because of the wind tunnel testing time. I mean, what they lack in wind tunnel testing time, they gain from the fact that the guy who's doing this is Adrian Newey.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian Newey is probably worth several weeks in a wind tunnel, just his knowledge. So
I just while Brett's having a cough away there, I was just reflecting back on the last couple of years about you saying about cost cap, and I think it comes down to 888. It costs money, but they're spending money before the season even starts they've got more employees. They can pay them a wage week in, week out, and the research and development that's going in probably as we speak right now on a Thursday and tomorrow, and then they'll be back at work Monday, and they've got their car probably half prepared, whereas some of the teams have just got their chassis yet and just thinking about how they're going to bolt some stuff onto it soon within the regulations and following all the plans, whereas the research and development by the bigger teams like your Tickford and your 888s, Brad Jones will probably be struggling. And I saw a comment today coming from the Brad Jones racing team saying they need to get Nick Percat up the ladder further in qualifying, because he's a great racer when he's on the track, and he proved that at Adelaide. But look, like it's in principle as well, though, too. I've been watching a bit of Formula One over the last few years, and we'll go over our highlights for a few years ago. Red Bull put a protest in for Mercedes, if everyone remembers the famous steering wheel where it nosedived forward and it came back.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, and everyone's was watching on TV. What's Mercedes done here? And what they were enabling the car to do is when it was braking and they shifted the steering wheel forward, it lowered the front end of the car down, so it actually dispersed the weight across the tyres better and kept them warmer. So when they got back and they pulled the steering wheel back and they were on a flat and they changed the slight angles and probably the toe or the camber on the front wheels, there was more heat in the tyres and they had more traction, and they were able to go faster and use their power plant more efficiently. Then without going into too much detail like I did that one, Stuart and I, with Brett on board having a laugh, only a year or two ago, we were talking about O2 sensors, because Ferrari over the first half of the season had manipulated their O2 sensor on their fuel, so they were able to use more fuel of their 100 litres, and then the FIA investigated what was going on. And the following whole year of 2020, I think it was, that's never been disclosed. It was all on the wraps. So I said they didn't break any rules the year before, but they weren't allowed to use their whole 100 litres of fuel per vehicle for their race like the other teams were, and the cars were massively underpowered because they had to restrict the fuel in the car. So, it's all research and development, and how much they can find the loophole in the rules to get an advantage on the other teams.
Brett, do you remember what Tico Williams was saying about research and development when we were at Monash University, and the things they were allowed to do and weren't allowed to do?
I forget like the exact things. I mean, it was fascinating. I mean, with some of those things, I mean that we've seen from Claude Rowell, who incidentally is back in. Unfortunately, because we're not up at Formula SA, we won't catch up with Claude this year. But Claude is back in Australia and has one of his sessions coming up next week here in Melbourne. If you've got the time and the money to do it, and if there's a space available, Richard would agree with me, 100%. It will be one of the best investments you've ever made in your life. The Claude Rowell seminars, they are just incredible. We were lucky enough to attend one years ago as Claude's guest, and myself,
where they held
Richard,
that, Brett?
and Stuart. I'm not sure where they are this year. I know they're in Melbourne. They used to hold them at Motec. Don't know where they are this year. I just know.
I can look it up while we're talking now.
I just saw that that'll be on the Optimum G Facebook page there, but I know he's doing traditionally because Formula SAE, he's coming out. I don't know whether he's judging at Formula SAE. I'm sort of assuming he is, but either way, he runs a sort of a free one for the students for Formula SAE competitors I think on the Monday, and then I think later in the week he runs the paid ones for everybody else, and they're very good though. I mean, we learned. I think we learned so much. I mean, you look at motorsport now in a whole new, different way. In terms of like every single thing, every little thing that happens, he shows you the big picture, and he shows you how all of those tiny little things, and really does show you the difference between a team like a Red Bull and a team like that's running at the back of the field somewhere. And it really is all those tiny little things, and just getting them right and why they're important. It was fantastic. He's a very entertaining and very knowledgeable man.
And data acquisition, the price of it has just plummeted. I mean, I have data acquisition, my little Excel, and a little thing worth under $1,000 used to be worth many tens of thousands of dollars from Motec when we went to that lecture. And I can put the same thing in my car now as they were doing then.
Yeah, well, it's like my on your road car now. I mean, pretty much every car made after about 1996 has the data scan port in there, and it's like you go in there now and you just plug it in, you start your engine, and you sit there and go, oh, it's got a miss on cylinder 2, and it's got this on there, and there's this, and you can. You just plug it in there. You don't the mechanic doesn't have to go through and dive in and out and see work through the chain. Just plug in something and have a look at it, and that's all of. You can pick one of those up off of eBay for about $75.
Well, the one I've got, Brett, it's got a magnet on the back. You clip it onto the dashboard. It's speed, it's lateral forces, it's vertical forces, it's yaw, it's horizontal forces. You can actually cut the circuit in half, and you can see exactly where you placed your car on the circuit at every particular lap, and segmented up by centimeters. It's just all you have to know is how to work a computer, which that's where
I didn't do that one. I didn't put that one up.
I had to.
Yes, it does.
It was a bit like Russian roulette, Pete. Which one of us was gonna hit the gun?
Yeah. In fact, until you start driving fast enough, that's all it tells you.
Richard's the first one to take the piss out of himself, so he doesn't mind a joke at all. So, aren't you, Richard? We always love talking about our nuts and bolts, don't we, on our racing days?
Speaking of nuts and bolts, coming up this weekend, the racing hasn't finished completely because obviously, as we've sort of mentioned, Formula SAE, and that's on at Winton this weekend. If you haven't been, if you've never been to Formula SAE, I can't recommend it highly enough. It is one of those. If you're interested in race car engineering, if you're interested in cars for the pure beauty of the engineering and for good ideas. I saw today, I haven't seen it in the flesh, unfortunately, but I saw the photo today of the Monash car. We did the launch of RMIT's car a couple of weeks, which is on the Pit Lane YouTube channel.
That's on YouTube.
But the car at the RMIT car, both the electric and the petrol car, looked fantastic. But my word, this thing coming out of Monash are really one of the world's top teams. They've dominated the competition locally over the years. They do a lot of wind tunnel work. Have a look at some pictures of this thing over the weekend. Have a look at the aerodynamics on it. It's it's a pretty wild looking thing. It would be good to do a story on it at some stage. But as I said, I don't know what the situation is for live streams. I've had a lot of people have said,
Blendline are doing it.
Blendline are doing it, are they?
Yes, I saw a post from Blendline
Oh, right.
and Winton, and official post from Blendline and Winton today. They are definitely doing the 2 days of live streaming. Not sure how comprehensive it is, but they have indicated today, late this afternoon, both Winton, so it's official.
I'm tipping it's going to be costing Formula SAE a lot more than the $5,000 that we were charging them. But anyway, and they whinged and moaned about that. But anyway, so it's good to know that it's being covered anyway. I'm sure they will spend a lot more money. I mean, we were just going up there with our.
I don't think it's going to get a state series crew onto it like they send as many people at the Sandown about. You might get only half the crew. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. There it is. Oh damn it! I'll just quickly. There we go. It was on the.
It's ours, yeah.
That's for the RMIT. So look for that up on the RMIT for the launch at Story Hall for it's about just over half an hour if you want to go through that for the RMIT.
That's the RMIT cars.
The cars, Yes, there it is there. So look for that front page, and then you'll get the countdown going into it there. And Brett doing some of his finest stuff.
No, I had nothing to. I had virtually nothing to do with it. I did one interview.
You did a couple of interviews.
Did a couple of interviews, but that was it. But that was mostly that was our RMI TV crew who got behind that, and also with a lot of help from Luke and Matt from RMIT University who pulled that together. We pulled that together very, very quickly. It was very much a last minute thing, as Formula SAE has often been over the years, but. No, they made the decision after all of this that they were going to move away from what we were doing and basically spend an awful lot of money. So I don't know where they got this money from, because I know that last year we went down. We originally quoted them
2 years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years. Yeah, when it was run, we quoted them. They sort of said that we don't have much money. We originally quoted them about $8,000 to do. And in the end, we kept pulling back cameras until we could get to 5,000 because that was their limit, and we did sort of 3 days of streaming for $5,000, and that included most of that went on accommodation and hire of cars and vans and all the rest of it. Knowing what Blendline TV, I can guarantee you it's going to be at least 4 times more, as much as that. But it'll be a very professional. It'll look very professional, but hopefully they're not. Hopefully, sponsors and that are playing that, and it's not the teams.
It'll be good. But I thought one of the highlights when we did it, Brett, was because we were thrown an absolute curveball. Well, we were playing baseball in America, and on the bottom of the ninth, and they threw half a dozen interviews at you and I completely off the cuff.
Oh, no, let's not go there. Hey, I'm just trying to say. Before we go though. I just want to say goodbye to this is important. I just want to say goodbye to Mark, and thank you, Mark. I hope you feel. He's probably got what I've got at the moment, but yeah, I hope you feel better, mate. Thanks for your support during the year. We'll catch you in the new year and have a good Christmas and a good New Year and all the rest of it. So thanks to Mad Cow Mark and for all your help. So appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see. Be well, Mr. Mark. Those six, we were throwing those 6 interviews, and we had no background information whatsoever. We didn't know who. When we sat down next to them, you and I, we didn't even know their name. We had to actually introduce ourselves to each other. And I thought we did those. We got some really good information and got some good.
We pulled together a 2-hour talk show with 5 minutes notice, literally.
We did.
We set up, that was crazy. Anyway, let's not go there.
The quality of the interviews was really good because the people that we were chatting to, the information was fantastic. They were very forthcoming.
For SAE have made their decision. The new marketing person there was full of bright ideas and basically told us that we weren't, not even thanks, but no thanks, but just piss off and don't come back again. So, So anyway, so that's gone. So, unfortunately, we are going to miss Formula SAE, but that means that I'm going to be down at Phillip Island with the RX8 Cup, which is happening this weekend. Also, the BMWs down there as well, and, of course, the Pi-Arc Sprint. They're all happening this weekend. I, once again, don't think sort of spectators are sort of being encouraged, but, if you go along and sort of say you're with one of the series or something like that, you'll get in. At least I hope you will, because I haven't organised anything.
So you want a Bert's mate from the BP crew that you're just cleaning the track. That's what a lot of people do. I'm dust busting the track with Bert from the BP promotional team. There you go.
Sprint cars at Avalon on Saturday night. Looks like the weather will be reasonable too. I think Sunday it's going to come in back raining again. If you have a look at next week, it's getting down. I think next Wednesday it's going to be sort of 13 degrees or something. But Saturday night should be fine.
The other thing, so Bairnsdale was on last weekend as well too. I think as well. Keep an eye out for not just Avalon. Keep an eye out for Bairnsdale. Keep an eye out for Nyora. There'll be a few different meetings here and there sprinkled before Christmas and after Christmas as well.
For Richard, Druin is happening this weekend as well, Sunday afternoon.
Well, I might pop out and say hello.
Druin Speedway is on. We had a terrific day out there at Druin, didn't we? Yeah, we had fun at Druin.
We could do it again if you wanted to.
I'll be a bit busy. Well, no, I'll be down at Phillip Island.
Oh, of course, yes.
You
can't be everywhere.
Yeah. And I think your right-hand man's down at Phillip Island with him too. I think with you as well, I think at this stage. Have you got a time on that, Brett, that they'll be kicking off?
I think it's Sunday afternoon. I think it's an afternoon meeting. But check.
No, the promo shots you were telling me about we were involved in.
Early start. Yes, I think they're pulling that off at 8:00 on Saturday morning. Hence, I'm going down. I'm going to spend I'm going to spend a bit of extra petrol money down there, and I've got a cheap place to stay in San Remo because there's no way I'm getting up at 5. I'm leaving here at 5:00 in the morning.
I'll talk to you about that.
To drive down there. So yes, so it's very early start.
That's not early. That's a sleep in. But anyway,
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. That's a sleep in for some. I went to Ballarat last weekend, and I was up at 4:15 in the morning to go to Ballarat. So there you go.
No, not me. Thank you very much.
We used to live in Horlin Road.
Yes. Lick Road, Claire, wet tongue.
Anyway, very, very good. What else is going around the tarmac?
Look, there's not a lot happening. I mean, this coming up this weekend internationally, you've got IMSA have got the Raw before the 24. They've got the big test of all of their new cars for next year. The Acuras, the Hondas have been faster so far, but that's looking really good for next year. As we see, Romain Grosjean, he has signed with Lamborghini. He's going to race one of the Lamborghini, the new hypercars at Le Mans for Lamborghini. He's the first major signing for them.
LMP2 cars have been wiped as well too.
Yeah, they're going to they're going to let them race. They're going to still race them at Le Mans. The ACO have said they will keep 15. There'll be 15 cars invited, and what I think they will do with that is they'll be the leading cars from the European Le Mans series. So LMP2 will be the major category for the European Le Mans series, the Asian Le Mans series, and they will still have a category in IMSA as well. So I imagine out of the 15, probably the top 4 or 5 from each of those series will be the ones who'll be invited to race at Le Mans. So we'll still see LMP, but next year they're going to slow them down. They're going to take quite a bit of power out of them and even more downforce away from them because they don't want the embarrassment of an LMP2 car getting up and beating all their super duper new hypercars from Porsche and Ferrari and all the rest of it.
Just doing a quick mention, a little bit about recognised box beat, the Triple B box down there. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that, especially as you said, the people that are not on tonight. However, look, Roy is like a bloody Melbourne Cup racehorse champion at the bit at the moment. He is on the dog and bone to Brett and myself, giving us updates regularly every couple of days. Loving going through those episodes. Roy is just going hell for leather on those old episodes. He is finding stuff left, right.
Another one going to air tonight. The one that's going to air tonight, as I said, if you think In Pit Lane is old, this is actually 10 years, in fact, about 11 or 12 years before In Pit Lane. It's stuff that I shot at the 1984 Australian Grand Prix out at Colbert
You had a
Park.
camera. You had a camera when you were 5 years old.
Yeah. I was only 5 years old, and I had a camera. And I had a camera. It was a camera and a porta pack, and the camera, the porta pack, and the tripod all together weighed 23 kilos. So if you wonder why my back is destroyed, yeah, it's pretty much so.
More than you.
But I did that, and then coming up in a couple of weeks' time, or even shorter, I did the same thing later in the year with the World Sports Car Championship that was held at Sandown, and I got some great stuff from behind the scenes there.
I was there too.
Stuff that
I would have come up and said hello to you.
I'm glad it wasn't the video that you did privately at one of your bedrooms anyway. So I'm glad you verified.
It will be motor racing, don't worry, people. It'll just be motor racing.
That one was just motor racing, was it? That's good.
Yeah, that's all.
It did have cars in that one, did it?
It did have cars, only a few. Roy saying, shame there's no 24 hours of Bathurst. Yeah, could keep it until 6 8. Yes, that was I love the 24 hour. The 24 hours. Richard, were you up at the 24 hour with us?
No, I wasn't. That was one of the few things I missed.
Yeah, we did the I forget Shane. I think it was Tony Alloy and Shane Mooma came up were with us for that.
So that
was a fabulous thing. The 24 hour was spectacular. It was wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to see a 24 hour again too.
I was about to say Roy Virtual Hour is Roy, but Roy, the way they're reinventing, dragging out some of the old style scenarios, wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years someone says that's it. We're going to get the 24 hours roughing again in 18 months or something like that. Someone will come up with it because they're still finding different ways of creating new categories again. So, thanks, SB. Much appreciated. You too, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's all coming to an end now. As I said, in terms of what happens with the show next year, we honestly don't know at this stage. I think the feedback certainly, and Pete and Doc were there and would say there. I mean, the feedback we certainly had from most of our crew on the show is that they would certainly like to come back, and that's sort of the main thing. However, it does come.
Would love to have us back.
The tech guys, Channel 31 would like us to come back, but it does come down to the availability of the studio, to RMI TV, whether because things change regularly. There's huge demand. Yeah, there is massive demand on that television studio. It is astonishing that we get access to this. Is, as I keep saying to people, this is the most advanced television studio in Australia. It is better than anything Channel 7 have got. It's better than anything Channel 9 have got. And that's not hyperbole. That is the people who built it will tell you it is state of the art. I mean, and people are coming. Yeah, people are coming from all over the world to have a look at this, and that's because that's just one studio in a whole complex.
I'll just drop a little.
Fact that we got it. Wow.
Half a joke here. If someone says catch the camera, there's $250,000 there. You got to be careful. You make sure you land on you instead of on the ground. So yeah, and there's more than half a dozen of those. So they're worth $250,000 plus. Those cameras that we
each of those pedestals that is on there is worth about $30,000. So yeah.
Anyway, so everyone that joins us, whether they're a student or a volunteer or mature age. Everyone that joins us, they put in an astonishingly professional effort. And Brett has a traditional shot every year for in pit lane, and that's just a sample of all the people that are behind the desk on that night. There's many more that have joined us throughout the year at different times, and they do a fantastic job as making the guests and the talent and the making the music makes fantastic. So also a shout out to Mike as well too. He's been directing most of the year and he puts a lot of effort behind the scenes. And his favourite saying during the year while he was getting his head around things again was, "My bad." I'd hear him on comms all the time. Damn, I missed that shot again. And my bad. Sorry, guys.
It was sometimes something stronger than damn.
I've kept the G plus rating for tonight. So, but Brett usually has to bleep those bits out. He just beep, beep, beep. Anyway.
But anyway, I think that's I think we'll wrap it. Now there will be, so as I said, I'll be as Roy has got sort of those so as Roy gets more of those tapes and digitized, he's going through some stuff right now. He's found some lots of raw footage stuff. I mean, he's found some personal stuff that's really, really important to me. And thank you for that, Roy, for getting that out there. That was an emotional day looking back at that. But so thank you.
I'm going to interrupt. We've got to try and get to Broadford too. Roy's really keen on it. I've got to get to Broadford. I've got a lot of family there. We're going to try and get a camera up over the next few months on the break as well, though, too. So there's a lot of motorcycle karting.
We will be doing stuff. As obviously, I'll be at Phillip Island this weekend, and I mean, even though I'm doing it for the RX8 Cup, I mean, they've said like if we want to use it, we will be doing stuff. I mean, the brand isn't in pit lane isn't going to just sort of completely vanish. Whether it just depends on what happens with the weekly show, because that's the thing that takes so much effort and so much money to do. But ultimately, I mean, the the YouTube channel, the Facebook page will hang around, and I've got cameras here. I just spent a big whack of this year's sponsorship money from Roy on fixing up a camera. I spent a couple of $100 to fix up a camera. So now that I've fixed it up, got to use the bloody thing. So there will be stuff happening. Live streams as well when we can make that happen as well. So thank you to everybody who's watched over the years. Thank you to everybody who's participated in Full Course Yellow. It was just something that sort of came up during COVID just to get together, and we sort of kept it going. So we'll see about next year, but we'll also see what time slot we're in and all the rest of it. So when we come back, who knows, when things start picking up again and there's a bit more news and we've got a bit more stuff to talk about, probably towards the end of January and all that, when Doc and I have hopefully finished our work, our jobs at the tennis and all the rest of it, we will so and as you say, Roy's saying a new amazing track to spectate and to film and photo. Good little track, good little circuit.
Roy, you should have seen it. I know in its heyday. I used to go to Mr. Motocross 3 or 4 times a year, and it was incredible. I still have very vivid memories of the front of the track, which is in front of behind the hill of the road track now. And it still exists there. You can still ride a dirt bike around the track, but you do it very gently because it's obviously in disrepair. But if they ever get Mr. Motocross going again, Broadford would have to be the #1 spot. Thank you very much, Roy. I won't bang on anymore.
Okay, everybody. Look, thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Dave Stillwell. Thank you to Chris Ritchie. Thank you to Stuart Fairweather. To everybody who has joined us in over the past year on Full Course Yellow. To all the regulars, it's not a huge audience. It's a loyal following. It's just a few friends getting together. And we'll see what happens for next year as well.
Information on what's going on. Sometimes we can't remember the whole 10, 15 events that are on a weekend. Everyone's been contributing.
We learn stuff. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's about sharing. It's about sharing information and getting stuff and answering your questions and getting your input on things as well. So we really do appreciate you're as much a part of the program as we all are as well. But look, have a great break. As I said, I'm just going to try and hopefully I'll test negative tomorrow and head down for the weekend. But I will see you. But keep an eye on the YouTube channel because, as I said, I'm trying to make it at least once, if not twice a week. I'm going to try and put up some of the stuff that Roy's put up.
There's a
and
fair
also
chance
other stuff
that a fair chance we'll get your mug out on the weekend. I might join you, as you know, as off the cuff, and I've indicated, and I might put if you can sign on the account onto a phone, we might wave a phone around in 4K. We might get I've got a new phone recently, and Brett recommended it to me, so Brett gave me some good advice on a new phone. We might try and whack that up and get some 4K video, Brett, from it.
Yeah, if we've got some time. I also said today we might actually once again it'll depend on time, because obviously this is not an in-pit lane gig. This is an RX8 Cup gig, and thank you to Rick Shaw and all the guys from the RX8 Cup for showing us their support and their last round of the year. They've come down to Phillip Island. You're going to see that's something that we'll probably talk about when we come back. Big changes at the local states here because of what's happening now in New South Wales. There is some big changes happening at the Victorian state level that I've been told about, and they're going to be very, very controversial. So more of that. If that happens, we'll see that next year. Okay, everybody. I think that's all the time for. Well, thanks for joining us. Have a good holidays, good Christmas, good New Year, whatever, and hopefully we'll all be here for more motorsport next year.
Whatever religion you follow, there's 29 different holidays over the next few weeks. So whatever you do, Merry Christmas in whatever way you call it as well then.
I follow one religion. It's called motor racing. So we're celebrating it now.
Everything's waiting around.
Brett has all intravenously in his veins.
Yes.
I've got something intravenous in my veins at the moment. It's what's keeping me alive.
Good night.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Have a good
Christmas.
weekend. Have a good
Christmas.
Christmas. Catch you
See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.